Ladies and gentlemen, it is the responsibility of Andrew Cuomo. It was the responsibility of Governor Andrew Cuomo to decide how many ventilators and masks he needed. On March 1st, he tweeted out that there's no reason for undue anxiety in New York. The general risk remains low in New York. Now you have New York, unfortunately, because of the inept and incompetent Democrats that run New York. I mean, you can't say that President Trump doesn't have the authority to open up economies while at the economies of states, while at the same time saying that it's President Trump's fault that these states are suffering. You can't say both things at once. The governors had the obligation, just like they have the authority to open up their the economies of their state, whether it's Michigan and Virginia. We'll get to that in a second, which President Trump has stated he wants to liberate. And the media is just all over the place regarding that phrase. But Andrew Cuomo on March 1st stated that the general risk remains low. You can just, if you don't believe me, Google it. Just put Cuomo, risk remains low. Okay. Axios. Cuomo, risk remains low despite first confirmed case in New York. March 1st, the tweet is the following. We have learned of the first positive case in New York. The patient contracted. Okay, so there is no reason for undue anxiety. The general risk remains low in New York. We are diligently managing the situation. We'll provide info as it becomes available. This is a tweet from Andrew Cuomo. Okay. 7 out of the top, you can just look. All of these states on the top of the list here have Democratic governors. New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts is third. It's a blue state, but fine. No, it's a Republican governor. Pennsylvania, Michigan, California, Illinois. Florida has a Republican governor, but Louisiana has a Democratic governor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you have Texas. Okay, so 7 of the top 10, 7 of the top 10 states with the most cases are run by Democratic governors. New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts has a Republican. Pennsylvania, Michigan, California, Illinois, all Democrat. Florida's a Republican governor. Louisiana is a Democratic governor. Texas is a Republican governor. 3 Republican governors, 7 Democratic governors. The cases go down from 229,642 in New York down to 78,000 in New Jersey, down to 34,000 in Massachusetts, down all the way to 18,000 in Texas, 10th on the list. You have 12,822 people who've lost their lives in New York. This is a serious thing. The general risk was not low on March 1st. You can say whatever people say, oh, well, Trump said this and he mismanaged this. The intelligence community would have told the House Intelligence Chairman, don't rely on the intelligence community or reports that say the intelligence community, because that's a bunch of nonsense. They haven't been right. You can go back from Pearl Harbor to today, the Bay of Pigs, the Gulf of Tonkin. You had Bush's intelligence failures that his foreign policy was predicated upon. Now you have Facebook ads. They're not even certain. They're moderately to highly confident. The point is this, before we get into the whole uproar regarding President Trump versus the Michigan governor and the concept of liberating states' economies, you have to understand, go to the New York Times. They gleefully put maps and a ranking of the states with the worst or the most cases and the most people who've lost their lives. And New York, Democratic run. New Jersey, Democratic run. Massachusetts, a blue state, but has a Republican governor. Pennsylvania, Democratic governor. California or Michigan, Democratic governor. Whitmer. California, Democratic governor. Illinois, Pritzker, Democratic governor. Florida, Republican governor. That's 9th. And then Louisiana, or 8th. Then Louisiana, Democratic governor, then Texas, Republican governor. The governors should have been, 7 of the top 10 should have been aware. But here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of the top 10, I'm going to repeat myself again. This is so important because nobody's talking about this. Of the top 10 states with the most cases and most lives lost, New York being a Democratic political machine where Andrew Cuomo was suing the federal government because of travel restrictions in February. And you look at the state of the state addresses in all of these 7 of the top 10 Democratic states, or 7 of the top 10 states run by Democratic governors. None of their state of the state addresses mention this. They had their equivalent of the state of the Union address in either January or February. They did not mention anything to do with this or masks or ventilators or the impending health crisis that their states faced. Now, so Andrew Cuomo, March 1st, the tweet. Then you have Eric Swalwell, Democratic congressman in California, saying stop wearing masks on March 3rd. These people were so inept, they spent their entire lives trying to impeach Trump on the absurd notion that Trump was going after Biden because he was afraid of the Biden campaign. Biden's about to pass the baton to Hillary Clinton. She's going to be nominee. I will have made the biggest political call of all time. But you have to look at, now you have Trump breaks with his own guidelines to back conservative anti-quarantine protesters. No, he's looking at Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia. Okay, now let's just look at Minnesota. Where is Minnesota on this list? Minnesota has 2,071 cases and 111 people have lost their lives. You compare that to New York with 229,000 cases, 642, and 12,822 people have lost their lives. So you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where New York is what? Let's see, 10th, 11, 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Minnesota is like 30th. Okay, I can go but down. Minnesota is like 30th, around 30th on the list. Okay, of states. They don't face the same situation that 7 of the top 10 states face that have Democratic governors. Okay. Minnesota, like Michigan, they have a different situation. These are Democratic governors, Tim Walz in Minnesota, Whitmer in Michigan, that don't want to open up their states. You have to look at the political calculus here. The Democrats didn't mind Illinois, Florida, and Arizona. Over 4 million people in lines during the pandemic, not engaging in social distancing. Or if some were, you better believe a lot weren't. 4 million people. How are you going to regulate 4 million people in 3 locations? Over 4 million people. 1 million alone voted in Florida just against Bernie Sanders for Biden. And Biden, the only reason they voted for Biden in overwhelming numbers in the Democratic primary is because his name is not Trump and not Bernie. But you have Minnesota with 2,071 cases and 111 people who've lost their lives, which is horrible, but it's not 12,000 cases. Then you have Virginia. Virginia is, let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20th, around 20th on the list. They have 7,491 cases and 238 people who've lost their lives. Far different than New Jersey with 78,467 people who've had it, who've tested positive, and 3,840 who've lost their lives. In certain states, you need to take care of yourself and be careful. You can't just simply, you have to address the situation. But in other states, the whole point, the reason I'm harping on all of this is because not every state in the country is New York. In fact, New York holds a unique distinction in terms of the severity and the suffering and the demise of people. And it's unbelievable how the machine in New York, the Democratic machine, is completely cleared of any wrongdoing when they're culpable. When they're culpable, they're responsible. It's their inaction and their inept or irresponsible or, short-sighted approach to this that caused their issues. There's a reason that I just showed you that Minnesota and Virginia, you can go look on the map. And then you have Michigan. Michigan does have a much more serious issue than Minnesota and Virginia, but you have 2,226 people who've lost their lives compared to 12,822, and it goes down from 12,822 in New York who've lost their lives to 3,840. Anyone who loses their life, it's a serious issue. Of course, it's like, you can't explain the severity, you can't communicate or articulate how horrific that is to have even one person lose their life. But you are making economic decisions that are going to affect millions upon millions upon millions of people. Now, Michigan has 29,952 cases. That's 200,000, over 200,000 cases less than New York. So when President Trump, and the reason I spent 10 minutes, 11 minutes, go look at the map. Go look at the map. The clusters are all in the Northeast and Chicago, and then you have the Detroit area in Michigan. So Michigan, there's a different story there in terms of, they're definitely experiencing this more than Minnesota and Virginia. The point, however, is, I'll just read you. I'll finally get to this. Trump breaks with his own guidelines to back conservative anti-quarantine protesters. President Trump culminating a swerving, week-long power struggle against the nation's governors. Well, wait a second. How does he have a power struggle against the nation's governors now, but it's not the nation's governors' fault if their states are suffering the most? The top 10 states are dominated. 7 out of the top 10 are Democratic governors. How do they reconcile this? How do they reconcile this? How does the Democratic Party reconcile? And how does media? By the way, look at the average age of the New York Times journalists or reporters, the White House press corps. You're looking at 30-something, early 30s to late 30s, okay? These are people whose lives, let's look at the age range of millennials. You're looking at people whose lives are dominated. Their political awakening was President Obama's administration. Okay? So the NATO intervention that destroyed Libya and all the problems that took place, President Obama drinking Flint water in a shameful publicity stunt. See, all of those things were getting into more countries in terms of military interventions. All of those things were swept under the rug because their political awakening was President Obama's administration. You're looking at millennials who are in their 30s right now. Define millennials between, so Gallup research used 1980 to 1996. So you're looking at, let's say, in your early 30s. About 25 to 40. That means the youngest millennials are between 20 and 24. The oldest coming up are 40. So let's say millennials in their 30s. These people have zero concept. They're disgruntled. They're angry. They have zero concept of context and nuance. Or I should say, they look at President Trump as the antithesis of their value system as human beings. So that translates into coverage where they're just trying to tear him down and tear him apart. And they don't look at the reality of how Democrats dropped the ball on this. They went from impeachment to now it's Trump's fault because of this crisis. And they are not looking at the data. The data shows that it was Democratic governors who were completely inept and irresponsible, and who were telling people not to wear masks, who were opposing travel restrictions, and who were saying the risk remains low. New York has more cases and lives lost than most countries around the world. But here, in a series of tweets Friday afternoon, the president issued an online call to liberate Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia, all states where aggrieved residents have gathered in public in recent days to demonstrate in opposition to stay-at-home orders declared by Democratic governors. The Democrats want to tank Trump's economy. I do not believe if Clinton were president, they would have issued these stay-at-home orders, even in California and New York. I do not believe that. They would have said, well, we'll keep the economy open. We'll keep not just essential businesses if you engage in social distancing and wear your mask. And everyone who has serious health issues or susceptible to respiratory issues, you stay home. And you know what? That probably would have been a lot better than what went on with President Trump. The media has not just a bias and an overt agenda. They have an objective. They have a goal. The goal is the same goal as the Democratic Party. New York Times journalists, like I said, they're not looking at their own reporting. They're not looking at their own reporting. The states hardest hit by this are run by Democratic governors. Most of the states are Democratic machines like Illinois and New York and New Jersey. Then they say it's Trump's fault. Then when Trump says he wants to open up the economy, they say he has no authority. The governors have all the authority. But it's Trump's fault that they're suffering. How do they reconcile or not see how irrational that is? They make contradictory statements. They're constantly contradicting themselves. They're constantly undermining their own argument. And then you have people who are understandably upset. People want to get back to their lives. They want to. They had 3 primaries on March 17th, and in the Wisconsin primary the other day, last week, they had people go out in the rain. People wearing masks, drenched from a rainstorm. That's the Democratic Party. Nothing says the Democratic Party than voters wearing masks, drenched in the rain, with hail pelting, landing on them, being pelted by hail, 2-inch, 3-inch thick hail. Okay, when they're not cheating their voters, they're forcing their voters in a pandemic to vote. And the Supreme Court, read the Supreme Court ruling I did on this channel. Doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about the Supreme, our ruling is that they have to vote on that date. They've made that was not even part of their jurisdiction or their ruling. They basically said they could vote at any point they wanted to. The reason they kept the primaries because they were state elections that they didn't want to postpone because that would leave Republicans in power too long in their minds. So they said, well, you know what? We'll have voters vote. So you can't tell me that media and Democrats wouldn't justify. You can't tell me they wouldn't justify opening up economies during this pandemic, because President Obama had a pandemic also. This is not the first time we've dealt with something like this. They try to make this unprecedented. Oh my God, it's unprecedented. Oh. There's a reason certain parts of the country, all run by Democrats, are dealing with this. You can talk about the cities where people live in very close proximity, that are run by Democrats, where they failed to just look into the future. You don't have to be Nostradamus to look 2 weeks into the future. 2 weeks into the future. Where they could just say, hey, look, you know what? We might, because we live in a metropolis, or because we have these, very crowded cities where people live in close proximity with one another, where there's a lot of poverty, maybe we should take precautions or look ahead and say, gosh, if there was a pandemic, which people are talking about, maybe we should, tell the federal government if we need more ventilators or masks or medical equipment. But they didn't. Then they say it's Trump's fault because what Trump says people listen to. Now they're saying we're not going to listen to Trump because he's not a governor. The biggest hypocrites on the planet. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to just tear apart and dismantle and eviscerate their arguments. You're talking about very petulant, malicious people on the left. And not only that, they don't even read their own writing. Look at the top states. And look at the state that leads the country in this calamity, unfortunately. And you don't see, when Hillary Clinton, and who will be the nominee, when she goes, when she said, well, Trump said America first, we're now first in cases, she never wrote, well, New York's number one always. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not my viewpoint. You never see Clinton. Clinton wasn't malicious in that matter because New York's a Democratic machine. That's where her base of power it basically resides. And so you didn't hear that from Clinton. Why? Because the media and Democrats completely sweep everything under the rug. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon is below. And thank you to my new Patreons. If you want to support my voice long term, especially and during this crisis, I'm just humbled and I thank you. But they don't even read their own data. Then they say the intelligence community, there could be an asteroid can hit the planet and then, everybody's obliterated, and then there'll be one piece of paper that said the intelligence community warned of this. They have no evidence. It's always just a report or unknown officials. Notice that they had a wonderful whistleblower who came out and said, well, Trump withheld military assistance. But where's the person that wants to say that? Where's the person that Adam Schiff can find who says, yeah, we warned President Trump? They were busy focusing on interfering in the election because Trump wanted to investigate Biden, who should have been investigated by the whole planet, Ukraine included, and the United States. The guy's corrupt beyond belief, and we know now, by the way, that's an act. The whole, oh my God, where am I thing, that's an act. That's a shtick. That's an act. Whether he's losing his marbles or not, that's even irrelevant. I don't think he is, but let's assume that he is. The whole thing's a charade anyway, because he shouldn't even be running. He should pass the baton to somebody. He will eventually. He will do something and say something that is so absurd and horrendous that they say, please, God, is there anyone else? And then then you'll have the New York Times article saying, we need Clinton back. She did win 65 million votes. And I told you this in 2017. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Tell everybody you know to subscribe to this channel and H.A. Goodman's other channel, because my voice, your voice, is about to be vindicated very soon. And ask yourself, if they made people vote, and don't say they didn't, because they did. Illinois, Florida, Arizona, and Wisconsin could have canceled or postponed their primaries. They didn't postpone their primaries like 16 or 20 other states because they wanted to take care and wrap up the nomination, quote-unquote nomination, so Biden can eventually hand the baton to Clinton. They put politics ahead of people's health, just like they put politics ahead of the integrity of our democracy and elections in 2016. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very, very much. Look at the ranking of states. Which states have Democratic governors? Which states have yet to close down even? There's 9 that haven't really shut them. They're all Republican states. There's obviously a difference in geography and a difference in each state, obviously. But that's the point. If you're a Democratic governor and you know that your state is different than Wyoming and different than Kansas and different than Nebraska and different than even Texas that has 10 million more people, and is doing infinitely better than New York, then maybe you should have prepared instead of talking about everything from solar energy to whatever else that you were talking about in your State of the State addresses. They dropped the ball on this. And this is yet another media collapse and failure, just like the whole Russia hysteria and then the impeachment hysteria. Notice they say, well, Trump, criminal. Trump, there was an illegal statute. There were no legal statutes in the articles of impeachment. There were in Bill Clinton's articles of impeachment. There would have been in Hillary's articles of impeachment. Clinton will be nominee. She'll lose to Trump. I give her a 20. When she announces, it might go to even a 25% chance because people will not take it seriously. And I'm telling you, Hillary Clinton could win. Now, if she loses again, when she loses again, she'll run again in 2024. So, give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very, very much.